A battle for survival in the sci-fi thriller Alien in an hour, but now a roundup of the day's world news.
Blair attacked over government spending on advertisements. Change in policy follows outcry over condemned calf. England fan fails in bid to overturn assault conviction. And mind where you step, Prince Charles arrives in Canada.
From ITN, the ITV News at 10 with Dermot Mona.
Good evening. A dramatic increase in government advertising brought accusations today that Labour was using taxpayers' money for party political purposes. The advertisements have cost a record £62 million in the last 3 months. The Tories and Liberal Democrats both condemned the spending today, though Downing Street insisted it had nothing to do with the impending election. John Sargent reports.
Children's tax credit. I bet you haven't even applied.
Government advertising campaigns have suddenly blossomed in recent months. All governments use advertising to inform the public. This one tells people they can get 4 weeks paid leave. But the scope and the scale of the government's advertising just before an election has led opposition MPs to cry foul. The Prime Minister insists it's not party propaganda.
The vast bulk of this are for campaigns that either ensure that we recruit the people we need for our public services, or that we are making sure that, for example, people entitled to the child tax credit get it. And I might just remind them that a few months ago, the Conservatives were complaining about recruitment in the public sector and saying we had to do something about it.
William Hague complained of money misspent. They should spend more on promoting tourism.
Bookings are massively down. The BTA say they need £7 million now to stop bookings being cancelled. Isn't it time the government stopped spending record sums advertising themselves and spent some of it advertising Britain?
The government's advertising bill has increased dramatically. In the first 3 months of last year, they spent £24 million. In the same period this year, it's up 2.5 times to £63 million. The government's Britain's biggest advertiser, spending nearly double the £34 million spent by the next largest, Unilever.
An awful lot of people will look at this and will say, here's the tourism industry that's only getting £6 million at a time of crisis, and here's the government spending £60 million, and they will say that is quite frankly obscene.
When Margaret Thatcher was in power, Tony Blair himself complained that taxpayers' money was being used to promote the Conservatives. It's an old argument, but it hasn't lost its power to embarrass the government. John Sargent, ITN, Westminster.
Within the past hour, Downing Street has revealed there's to be a change in its foot and mouth slaughter policy. It follows the high-profile case of a calf called Phoenix, who escaped a cull in Devon. Today, Ministry of Agriculture slaughtermen again came to kill her, but her owners refused them entry. Now Downing Street says she will be saved. Here's Paul Davis.
Phoenix, who's just 12 days old, was being cared for by farmer's son Ross Board tonight. As it emerged, the government is about to change its policy on culling, removing the death sentence from this little calf and thousands more like her. Phoenix's prospects did not look so good earlier in the day, when Ministry slaughtermen called at the Board family's farm near Axminster to finish the job they began last week. Because of an outbreak of foot and mouth more than a mile away, Phoenix's mother and the rest of a healthy herd were slaughtered. But somehow the calf escaped and was found days later among the carcasses. Today, the Board family asked the ministry men to leave and spare their calf.
I don't want this calf to die, you know. It's basically a symbol for the rest of the farmers to say we can start again, you know.
Earlier this evening, government MPs appeared to be hinting that Phoenix could be spared.
This poor creature that managed to survive, the idea that it should now be killed is outrageous and quite inhuman, and I cannot believe for one moment that this is going to happen.
And a short time ago, Downing Street announced that healthy animals like Phoenix will no longer be slaughtered just because there are outbreaks of disease nearby. In another expression of optimism today, the government's medical experts have told MPs they expect the daily list of new cases of foot and mouth will be a thing of the past by the anticipated election date, June the 7th. On day 64 of the outbreak, there have been 80 new cases, taking the total tonight to 1,482. Just over 2 million animals have now been slaughtered. The backlog awaiting slaughter stands at 178,000, though that figure may now be reviewed. Meanwhile, scientists have said the public should not panic over what's described as the minimal chance of people being infected with the foot and mouth virus. The man who fears he is the first human in Britain to contract the disease was hiding his face beneath a blanket today. Paul Stamper, who believes he was infected while working as a part-time slaughterman in Cumbria, has sold his story and was avoiding the cameras. Paul Davis, ITN.
The only English football fan jailed for rioting at the Euro 2000 Championships today lost a bid to clear his name. A court in Brussels upheld the guilty verdict against Mark Forrester. He says he's been made a scapegoat and will appeal. From Brussels, Bill Neely reports.
Mark Forrester says he's not a hooligan, he's a scapegoat. He remains, however, a convicted criminal. He lost his job because of the conviction. Today, he lost his appeal against it. The three judges said they believed the only witness at his trial, a Belgian policeman who identified Forrester inciting England fans. His evidence, they said, outweighed video footage that showed Forrester merely watching violence.
Just have to live with that and fight on.
Forrester says he isn't surprised.
Belgian justice is absolutely appalling.
His European MP, Liz Lynn, was outraged.
This is a European country, for goodness sake, not a third world country.
I did not start any riots. I wasn't involved in any riots, any fighting, any disturbances, and I certainly didn't assault 5 armed riot police.
Forrester was one of hundreds of English fans arrested in Brussels before the England-Germany game. His lawyers say video footage taken by British police also shows him not taking part in violence. But that only became available yesterday. His supporters say the Belgians knew about it all along, and he's the victim of a conspiracy. Mark Forrester remains well and truly caught up in the Belgian legal system. But the most remarkable thing is that he remains the only England fan caught and convicted from among 750 English supporters arrested here last summer. Bill Neely, ITN, Brussels.
The makers of the anti-smoking drug Zban admitted today it shouldn't be taken with anti-malarial drugs at an inquest into the death of an airline stewardess. A fortnight after she was prescribed Zban, British Airways stewardess Kerry Weston was found dead in her hotel room. The drug may have triggered a reaction with her anti-malarial medication. The inquest continues tomorrow. The Census is running into difficulties with hundreds of extra telephone helplines having to be installed to cope with the hundreds of thousands of calls officials are getting. As Nicholas Owen reports, many people are just ringing to say they haven't even got their forms yet.
The operation to deliver the forms still going on today, as the organisers of the whole huge exercise struggle to deal with a totally unprecedented number of people having problems with the 2001 census. The technology is bang up to date. Computers scanning the answers can read the most impenetrable handwriting. But before the answers are completed, many people are worried about how to respond, or in many cases why they still haven't got their forms. The census helpline in Manchester has been flooded with inquiries. Callers are assured they don't have to complete the questionnaire till well into May. Still, there's alarm at the sheer volume of calls. In the census 10 years ago, there were only 200,000 altogether over several weeks. Things are very different this time.
We had 250,000 calls yesterday. We've been very surprised by the unexpectedly high number of calls. And it is some concern to us because we do want to provide help to those that require it. And for that reason, we've actually doubled the number of helplines that we've got available, and we did that overnight.
Out of the many thousands of queries, the most commonly asked questions are, I don't have the form yet. We're told not to worry as many are still being delivered. What if I'm away on census day? The advice is to complete and return forms as soon as possible. Another common question, can I sign the form on behalf of someone else? Yes, if you've helped someone complete the form or completed it on their behalf. Officials here in charge of the census are keen to stress that they want to help and encourage everyone to take part, rather than threaten and remind people that you can be fined up to £1,000 if, in the end, you don't get that form in. Nicholas Owen, ITN, at the Office for National Statistics.
The Halifax and the Bank of Scotland made a surprise announcement today that they're talking about merging. The merger of equals, as it's been called, would create Britain's fifth biggest bank, worth about £28 billion. Caroline Kerr reports.
Today's plan for Halifax to join forces with the Bank of Scotland took everyone by surprise. Thousands of bank workers are worried about job losses. But for once, consumer groups say there's nothing for customers to fear from a merger.
The two organisations together could form, if you like, a fifth column. And for the first time, customers would see an organisation able to challenge the domination of a somewhat complacent Big Four.
Today's proposal is being described as a merger of equals, though in fact the Halifax would be the larger partner. If it goes ahead, it'll be third time lucky for the Bank of Scotland. It's already tried and failed to take over first NatWest and then the Abbey National. At present, Halifax has 37,000 employees and a market value of £18 billion. The Bank of Scotland employs 20,000 people and is worth more than £10 billion.
Who gives you extra?
Shareholders in both banks pocketed a little extra today. Share prices shot up, largely because the two banks complement each other so well.
Well, Halifax is very strong in England. It's very strong in mortgages, savings, and it's trying to make a big thing in current accounts. Bank of Scotland's very strong in Scotland, very strong in current accounts up there, so it's some expertise that Halifax could learn from. But also it's big in business lending, and that's something Halifax wants to do a lot more of.
No merger's guaranteed to succeed, but this one stands a good chance because it's unlikely to worry the Competition Commission. Caroline Kerr, ITN.
Now, some news about this channel. ITV today got a new chief executive and announced that it's launching a new pay TV sports channel. It'll be available from August through the On Digital service, which is being renamed ITV Digital. Here's Katie Derham.
Talk pay TV, and in recent years you've been talking sport. And ITV want to make sure they're a major player. Today saw the launch of a new premium pay-per-view channel, ITV Sport, which has the rights to show Champions League matches and nationwide league games live. It's all part of today's major announcement by ITV of their plans for the future and of their new boss, Stuart Prebble. ITV's structure will now be made up of three clear businesses: ITV Channels, ITV Digital, and on the internet, ITV.com. ITV channels will include the current terrestrial ITV, plus free digital channels such as ITV2 and digital pay-per-view channels. The new pay-per-view sports channel will be launched in August. ITV Digital will be the new name for a rebranded On Digital and will be trying to get its digital terrestrial services into more homes. On the internet, ITV.com will be a revamped and extended ITV website and will now include popular existing sites for programmes such as Coronation Street and online quiz games such as Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Everything that you enjoy today free of charge on ITV will continue to be available and more as a result of this.
There's definitely a great deal of confusion out there about digital. Every time I write an article about it, I get letters, well, what's happening? Are we going to lose our television? I think the single branding of ITV will definitely help selling this proposition, but it's still going to take a great deal of money.
The world of television is changing rapidly with new technology and new channels. For ITV, then, today was a very important day as they set out how they intend to fight the battle for viewers in this new marketplace. Katie Derham, ITN.
Football and Scotland drew 1-1 with Poland tonight in their friendly match. Scott Booth scored the Scottish equaliser from the penalty spot midway through the second half. The Scotland manager Craig Brown handed out 7 new caps in an experimental side. The Prince of Wales arrived in Ottawa this evening at the start of an official 6-day visit to Canada. As well as a red carpet, the Canadians rolled out a disinfectant mat for him. Juliette Bremner reports.
The Prince's arrival in Canada was dominated by the unusual preparations deemed necessary to decontaminate the royal party. The fear that foot and mouth disease could be spread by visitors from Britain is strong, and Canadian officials felt it was important that Prince Charles should be seen publicly stepping onto a disinfected mat. Both he and the rest of his entourage agreed to wear newly cleaned clothes and to make sure that there was no mud on their shoes. But the ritual didn't detract from the Prince's more traditional duties at the National War Memorial in Ottawa. A large crowd turned out to watch him dedicate a wreath to Canadian soldiers who lost their lives at the Battle of Vimy Ridge during the First World War. If the Prince had any doubts about the warmth of his welcome, they were quickly dispelled during a walkabout.
There's been an enthusiastic reception here in the capital, Ottawa, but farmers in the more rural areas of Canada, where the Prince heads next, are worried that he could bring with him the threat of foot and mouth disease.
Despite his personal popularity, it seems unlikely that the Prince will be able to give British tourism the boost it so desperately needs. The crisis has already forced him to rearrange his schedule. He's agreed he won't visit any farms during his week-long stay to reduce any possible risk of spreading the disease. Juliet Bremner, ITN, Ottawa.
Tonight's main news again. The Prime Minister has come under fire over a dramatic increase in government advertising, and the government is to change its foot and mouth slaughter policy, reprieving Phoenix the calf, which survived a cull in Devon. And that's the news tonight. Next on ITV, national disaster. But from me and the entire team here, goodbye.
Gen, gas, electricity and telephone.
Good evening. Difficult to find a corner of Britain that didn't have a shower today. The Met Office radar screen showing lots of showers around. As you can see, the blue areas picking out the heavier downpours, and there were some really heavy downpours, thunderstorms around as well. They'll gradually fizzle away as we go through the night. Most places will end up dry, but a bit misty in places, especially central and northern parts where the winds are very, very light. Now, tomorrow is going to be a better day. There'll be some sunny spells for us all and far more scattered showers than they were today, so a chance that some places will miss them and stay dry. In the south and west, they'll have thicker clouds through the second half of the day and some rain, I think, towards the end of the afternoon and evening. Temperatures tomorrow in the bright bits between the showers will see 13 or 14, and that's the mid-50s. Good night.
Power Gen, gas, electricity and telephone.